October 1597. In a narrow strait off the southwestern tip of Korea, where the tide runs so violently that the channel is said to roar like a living thing, 13 warships ride at anchor in the gray morning light. 13 ships, the entire remaining navy of the Kingdom of Joseon. Bearing down on them, a Japanese armada of more than 300 vessels, at least 133 of them warships, packed with veteran samurai who have spent 5 years burning their way across Korea. Their orders are simple: annihilate what is left of the Korean fleet, break into the Yellow Sea, and open the supply road that will carry the Japanese army all the way to the gates of Seoul. Standing on the deck of the lead Korean ship is a 52-year-old admiral who, just 4 months earlier, was lying in a torture cell, beaten, disgraced, and stripped of his rank by the very king he is now fighting to save. His name is Yi Sun-sin. He has never lost a battle, and before this day is over, he will fight the most impossible naval engagement in recorded history. This is the Battle of Myeongnyang. To understand how 13 ships ended up facing an empire, you have to go back 5 years to 1592, the year Japan invaded Korea. The warlord Toyotomi Hideyoshi had just unified Japan after a century of civil war, and now commanded the largest battle-hardened army on Earth. More than 150,000 veteran samurai and ashigaru with a plan of staggering ambition: conquer Korea, then conquer Ming China itself. On land, the invasion was a juggernaut. Seoul fell within 3 weeks. Pyongyang soon after. But at sea, something kept going catastrophically wrong. A single Korean admiral, Yi Sun-sin, kept intercepting the Japanese supply fleets and destroying them with an efficiency that bordered on the supernatural. At Okpo, at Sachin, at Hansando, Yi's fleets shattered squadron after squadron, using superior cannon, iron-spiked turtle ships, and a mastery of Korea's treacherous coastal waters that the invaders could not match. An army that could not be beaten on land was slowly starving because of one man on the water. Yi Sun-sin became the most dangerous obstacle to Hideyoshi's entire war. And when the fighting stalled into truce, the Japanese decided that if they could not defeat him at sea, they would destroy him another way. They used the court itself. A double agent fed the Korean king intelligence about a Japanese raid, a trap designed to lure Yi's fleet into ambush waters. Yi, smelling the deception, refused to sail, and that refusal was all his enemies needed. Rivals at court accused him of treason and cowardice. In February 1597, the undefeated admiral was dragged to Seoul in chains, interrogated under torture, and very nearly executed. Only the intervention of senior officials spared his life. Yi Sun-sin, the greatest commander his nation had ever produced, was demoted to the rank of a common foot soldier. Command of the navy passed to his rival, Won-gyun. 5 months later, Won-gyun sailed the entire Korean fleet, more than 150 ships, the fleet Yi had spent 5 years building, into exactly the kind of trap Yi had refused. At Chilcheollyang, the Japanese fell on the anchored, exhausted Korean navy at dawn and wiped it out. Won-gyun was killed. Nearly every ship was burned or captured. In a single night, Korea's navy ceased to exist. 12 warships escaped the slaughter. 12. With the sea finally clear, the second Japanese invasion surged forward, and a desperate court did the only thing it could. It gave Yi Sun-sin his command back. The admiral returned to the coast to find almost nothing left: a handful of surviving ships, shattered crews, terrified refugees. The court, seeing the arithmetic, sent Yi a letter suggesting the navy be disbanded entirely, its sailors folded into the land army. Yi's reply became one of the most famous declarations in military history. "I still have 12 warships," he wrote. "As long as I live, the enemy will never be safe in the Western Sea." 12 ships against an empire. 13, after one more straggler joined. Where another man saw a rounding error, Yi saw a fleet. But courage alone does not sink ships. Yi needed a battlefield that could fight beside him, and he knew exactly where to find it. Off the coast of Jindo Island lies the Myeongnyang Strait, in Korean, the Roaring Channel. At its narrowest, the passage squeezes to a few hundred meters, and through that bottleneck the tide rips it up to 10 knots, among the fastest coastal currents in Asia, water moving faster than a galley can row. Every few hours, the current reverses direction entirely. Local fishermen feared the place. Yi Sun-sin chose it as his killing ground. The logic was cold and perfect. In the open sea, 133 warships would simply engulf 13. But inside the roaring channel, numbers become a liability. Only a handful of ships can enter the narrows at once. The rest must wait, packed and helpless, in the tidal race behind them. And a commander who knows the exact hour the current turns holds a weapon greater than any cannon. On the morning of October 26, 1597, the Japanese fleet came on with the tide at its back, confident to the point of contempt. Leading the vanguard was Kurushima Michifusa, a pirate-born daimyo whose own brother had been killed by Yi's fleet 5 years earlier. For him, this was extermination and revenge in one stroke. As the massive fleet funneled into the strait, the 13 Korean ships stood in line abreast across the channel, a wall of wood and cannon barely wide enough to matter. And then something happened that Yi recorded in his own war diary with brutal honesty. His captain's nerve broke. Staring at a horizon black with enemy sails, the Korean ships began to hang back, drifting away from the fight, their commanders paralyzed by the sheer scale of what was coming. One ship did not retreat, the flagship. Yi Sun-sin drove his own vessel forward, alone, directly into the mouth of the strait, and opened fire. For what may have been hours, a single Korean Panoxion fought the leading edge of the entire Japanese armada. The flagship became a fortress in the water, cannon thundering from its high deck, arrows and gunfire sweeping the Japanese boarding parties as they pressed in. The Japanese ships, lighter and lower, were built for one tactic: swarm, grapple, and board, the tactic that had slaughtered the Korean fleet at Chilcheollyang. But in the boiling water of the Narrows, packed hull to hull, they could not swarm. They could only come at the flagship a few at a time, into the mouths of its guns. Yi's diary records the moment with the flat calm of a man beyond fear. His ship stood like a castle in the middle of the sea. He turned to his terrified crew and told them, in essence, that those who seek death shall live, and those who seek life shall die. Slowly, shamed, inspired, or both, the rest of the Korean line began to move. One captain, then another, rode forward into the storm of fire, and the wall reformed around the flagship. 13 ships, wedged into a channel where the enemy's crushing numbers meant nothing, poured cannon fire into the packed Japanese vanguard at murderous range. Then the sea itself changed sides. The tide of the roaring channel reversed, exactly as Yi knew it would. The current that had carried the Japanese fleet into the strait now slammed into their bows, driving them backward, into their own oncoming ships. The vanguard was hurled against the second wave, the second against the third. Hulls splintered against hulls. Oars tangled. Ships collided, capsized, and drifted helplessly in the race while Korean cannon fire tore into the floating chaos. The Japanese fleet, the greatest naval concentration of the war, had become a logjam of burning wood in a channel that roared. In the middle of the carnage, a Japanese defector aboard Yi's flagship spotted a body in the water dressed in the brocade of a high commander. It was Kurushima Michifusa. The daimyo, who had come for revenge, was hauled from the sea, and his severed head was hoisted on the flagship's mast, in full view of both fleets. For the Japanese crews, already trapped in a current dragging them onto their own comrades' hulls, the sight of their admiral's head swinging above the Korean flagship broke something fundamental. By late afternoon, it was over. Roughly 31 Japanese warships had been destroyed outright, dozens more crippled and shattered in the collisions, thousands of samurai and sailors drowned in a channel that gave nothing back. Korean losses, not a single ship. A handful of men killed aboard the flagship. 13 ships had met 133, and the 13 had won. Even now, historians reach for explanations. The terrain, the tide, the cannon, the discipline. And all of them are true, and none of them feel sufficient. In Korea, the battle is remembered by a simpler phrase: the miracle at Myeongnyang. The consequences were immediate and immense. The Japanese fleet reeled back east, and with it died the plan to supply the armies pushing north by sea. The invasion's momentum, restored just months earlier by the annihilation at Chilcheollyang, collapsed a second time, this time for good. The Japanese offensive stalled, starved at the end of overland supply lines, and began the long, bleeding retreat into coastal fortresses. Within a year, Toyotomi Hideyoshi was dead, and the invasion of Korea died with him. As the Japanese armies withdrew in 1598, Yi Sun-sin attacked their evacuation fleet one final time at Myeongnyang. Another crushing victory, and his last. At the moment of triumph, a stray musket ball struck the admiral in the chest. His recorded final order to those beside him: "The battle is at its height. Do not announce my death." His flag kept flying. His fleet kept fighting. The Japanese were destroyed, and only when the guns fell silent did the Navy learn that the man who had saved Korea twice was gone. Yi Sun-sin fought over 20 naval engagements against the Japanese Empire. He lost none of them. He was tortured by his own king, handed a dead navy of 12 ships, and given an impossible strait to hold. And he turned that strait into the graveyard of an armada. Centuries later, naval officers around the world, including admirals of the very nation he defeated, would rank him among the greatest commanders ever to sail. 13 ships against 133, a channel that roared, a tide that turned on schedule, and an admiral who never turned at all. They called it a miracle. Yi Sun-sin called it Tuesday. Thanks for watching Historical Club. If history's greatest last stands belong on your screen, subscribe, because some commanders deserve to be remembered forever.